2NURFM.com, a broadcast service of the University of Newcastle.
Well, there's a lot of driving around. There's a lot of looking for car parks. There's, I think, a lot of shopping, but one for one, I think possibly looking for the car park takes longer. Professor John Fischetti has had just that experience yesterday. Welcome, John.
Hey, good morning, Meryl. Yeah, I was at Marketown and it took me longer to find the car park than to go in and buy the one thing I needed.
I think that's par for the course. Just hearing Michael McDonald saying what's going on, I'm projecting into Christmas and all of those people that have just sat their HSC and grandma comes around, the cousins come around, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, so how did you go in your HSC? Now, if you did well, it can be a positive and reinforcing conversation. Not so well, it can be particularly difficult, can't it?
Yeah, and the holidays build a lot of stress around young people and their expectations, and I think for a lot of them, they thought they might do a little bit better than they would have. So 70% are probably disappointed, since the upper 30% are actually the ones that get a pretty good ride to the next step. So there's a lot of options that people have, regardless of how ATAR turned out, regardless of their HSC turned out, that I'd love to share and make sure they turn this holiday into a chance to look forward, not backward.
So that is really the key message for today. It really doesn't matter how you went in some respects.
Yeah.
If you didn't do as well, there are other alternatives. Well, it's not the end.
Well, first let's talk about what ATAR isn't. ATAR is a determination of admission rank to compare you with the other people in your Year 12 class. It is sort of like having the pointer finger on your right hand. It sort of points you in a direction that might be strong in literacy and numeracy. In the HSCs you sat for, it might give some indication of where you rank. But just as your pointer finger is not your whole hand, if you are really brilliant at pointing, but you've got 4 other fingers so weak and you got another 5, imagine if you didn't do well. You have the whole rest of your hand, you have the whole rest of your life to turn it into what you need it to be. So it's one piece of information is the number one of the pointer finger. It does represent, for students that do poorly, potentially some need to get some of the basic skills right before they take on a 4-year degree or a major trades profession, because it could show some weaknesses. But it actually may not. So one option is, if you're really fundamentally weak, is to come into an enabling program, such as the University of Newcastle has for students right out of high school or for a long period of time, mature age students, and get a year under your belt of getting university work and building the credentials so you'll be terrific. But if you already believe you are, and you just woke up year 11 and 12 to find that intrinsic motivation, there are some other options you can do which won't delay you at all.
Okay, so just taking a step back, the enabling courses, yes. Is that still called Open Foundation? I remember it used to be called that, John. Is that what it's still called?
There's Open Foundation and New Step.
New Step.
And New Step for right out of the high school is the one which basically is a year opportunity to really boost your skills. And during that time, you really become that savvy student you thought you could be. Remember, I don't think any of us want to be identified by who we were at 14.
No.
And what if at 17 and 18 we got our groove on, but it was a little too late to sit for the right exams or to get the right ATAR? If you got the right attitude, you'll still have a terrific future.
New Step is the program that I know a young girl did.
Yeah.
She didn't do so well. I think she scored about 40 in her ATAR and was very disappointed. But she's done New Step this year and she's scored in the high 80s this time around.
It's magnificent.
And she's now going on to do a business degree next year. So she took another 12 months, but enjoyed it very much. And Jazz, if you're listening, we think you're awesome. She's not a relative, but I've known her for a lot of years and she's a beautiful young girl. And she was telling me that very story. She said, Meryl, I didn't do very well in my HSC at school, but I went and did New Step and I couldn't remember what it was called, but I knew it was here at the university.
So the HSC is almost as much a reward for stress management as it is for anything else. Remember, 25% of Australian students won't complete Year 12. But it doesn't mean they aren't going to have a great life. In fact, the HSC can chase some students away, or the stress-related may mean they don't do as well as they could. Therefore, we've got to find futures for everybody. What's changed since my generation is we have to have everybody be successful. Everyone needs to reach their highest level of success, academically and professionally, for Australia to make it in the global economy. 23 million people, there can't be one slacker. And if you're going to be at a low level, a robot will take your job if it hasn't already. So this is where we have to not let young people be disappointed that they just haven't gotten a score, which once you get that score, if you can overcome it, actually is irrelevant. It's what you do post secondary that will shape who you are and what you'll become.
So that's the New Step and the Open Foundation programs. What are the other ones that you were just about to tell us about?
For so many people, going into TAFE and doing a certificate or getting a trade degree, a diploma is a perfect transition. It might get you a step for 3 to 4 years. You still may want that business degree, that engineering degree, that nursing or education degree, and you could transition then with showing that you have met the post-secondary qualifications to get in without another preparation degree. For some people, it's to come into a BA or a BSc or a degree that might not be their first choice, do really well that first year, and make sure you're advised and take the right array of units, and you could move laterally with no gap once you show that you've done that year. So anybody year 11, 12 said, I finally figured it out, but they're a little weaker on some of the ATAR level, you could do brilliantly in a first year and make it straight into the degree you were hoping to. It won't affect your life at all.
A lot of people do that with biomedical science and medicine, don't they? They may not have received the score they need to be a doctor, but they know the end game is that's where they want to go. So they do perhaps something within the biomedical sphere, a degree. They start in another degree that doesn't require the marks, and then they work really hard that first year. And I know that medicine's a bit different because you have to have interviews and you have to sit other tests, but they do that and they use that year to really get to the speed that they should have been at.
And with that almost erases the prior record. So anything you've done to this point, if you show a year of great success, you're going to be fine.
Excellent.
For some young people, taking a year off to travel, to work in the real world, can also give them the motivation to come back with some extra goal in mind, so they find that attitude. And for mature age learners coming back, which in some of our professional tracks is as much or more of the majority of our students, it's if you feel you had a weak high school experience, get some of the basic skills back, the writing and the reading and the mathematics that'll make you very successful. Don't come in without doing a little preparatory work, whether it's in an enabling program, with a tutor, with your daughter, who might be ahead of you if you're tutoring her, and just don't give up. The god Janus for January is the god of the door. You look backwards or you look forwards, and in the Roman god's world, what it's time to do for everybody is let's look forward, because education is opportunity and it's hope, and that's the opportunity of living in a free country like Australia.
Well said, John. Thank you so much for saying that. And thanks for your contribution this year.
Thanks,
I know
Meryl.
a lot of people who've listened to you and really taken in what you've said and said, oh, that's just fantastic advice, and I'm now doing different things with my kids and their education, and also myself and my education. Thank you so much for it, and look forward to having you back next year for more chats on education.
Yep, happy holidays, happy new year. And
Thank you
to
so
everybody
much.
out there.
Thank you, John. John is, of course, the head of the School of Education at the University of Newcastle, and he joins us every other Wednesday to catch up and have a talk about some of the cutting-edge things that are happening in education, the all-important education of our fabulous children, because they're the ones that'll be looking after us when we're all old and dribbling. 2NURFM.